think that has a valid grounding for everybody. I write until I feel like it's time to stop. So, excuse me, for me, that is a few minutes for me. I can go up to 30 minutes sometimes in my writing because I've added various levels with that. That is not required, but it is important that you do it and that you do it on a regular basis, because I must tell you, I observe a noticeable difference in my life every day that I make time to ground myself in writing. Now, it doesn't happen every day, but the days that I do, I notice that my life just flows better. And it's more than that for me. I also write down notes around my house that are constant positive reminders about the abundance that I want to have in my life in all ways. I'm not just talking about financial. I'm talking about my health. I'm talking about in interpersonal relationships, friendships, love relationships, parent relationships, your work, your income. I'm always leaving notes for myself around the house about these positive reminders. I leave notes about my goals and I read them to myself and then I refresh them. That's the key too. As I started to apply the skill to my life, that my life was actually meeting these goals. Like, I would look at the list that I keep by my bedside, one of them, and I would see like, oh my gosh, 4 of those things have happened. And it wasn't that it felt like it was a great deal of effort, but because I had allowed it to leave my consciousness and get onto a piece of paper, it started to happen. Think about Babe Ruth making the call that he was going to hit a homer. He was prophetically speaking over himself something, and something in him rose to that occasion of cracking that ball out of the field. That is the power of your momentum, your own personal prophecies for yourself, and writing down your goals. And sometimes I would get busy with life and I would forget one of the goals that I'd written down because I have a lot. But practicing daily, I still was building momentum. And that momentum, even though I may have forgot about your goal is you're going to have a grocery bill that's $20 or whatever. I may have forgotten that I set that goal for myself that day. And I do write goals as tiny and minute as that. However, because I'm practicing daily, that momentum is building and that momentum is moving. And it is enough to carry me on a wave to my dreams. It's really an phenomena that you can easily tap into. Just little goals. Your morning pages don't need to be the 30-minute pages that I do sometimes. It can be 2 minutes where you write down 3 things that you'd like to see happen in your day, and the universe is going to reward that action. I have a friend who is an avid climber, and we live in Florida, so there are not many mountains to scale here, okay? But she dreams and has dreamt of climbing some of the world's highest peaks. And she began by finding challenging rock walls. That's how she began her climbing aspirations all around Florida. And she would simply write. We had talked about it, and she's like, listen, I'm really wanting to do this. And I suggested to her, write this down. And this isn't magic. This isn't about me. This is about her harnessing her own magic. I said, write down that you want to meet this goal. You want to do this. She kept talking to me about it. I'm like, you should do it. You're fit. You're brave. You're like just an amazing person. You should do it. And so she started to write it down. And what she wrote down is, and I asked her if I could use this. So she said, I ring the bells of the most challenging rock walls. And what she means by that is at the top of a rock wall, and I don't know because I have not been there, y'all, but at the top of a rock wall, she's told me, and I think I've seen it from the ground, there are bells. So when you reach a certain level, you can ring the bell, and that's just your own kind of reward system. It's kind of like you're saying, I did it, okay? Everybody likes a hand clap or a cheer. So that bell is your cheer when you have scaled this wall. So she wrote down again, I ring the bells of the most challenging rock walls. She wrote that down every day. That's it. Not 20 minutes, not even 1 minute. That takes seconds for her to write it down. And she wrote it down. And then we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it for a while. She just was in her practice. She carried it around with her too, which is another suggestion I think is really important, is sometimes have that in your purse, your wallet, have it in your car so that you can just know that this is a reminder. So I ring the bells of the most challenging rock walls. So she carried that around with her little by little. She accomplished that goal. So she went all around Florida ringing the bells of rock walls that were all around Florida. She mapped it out. Here's what she's doing, guys. She's putting momentum behind her dream. Now, she wants to climb mountains. So you think, well, she's not climbing mountains, Monette. She's climbing a rock wall. That's kind of maybe not the same thing. I get it, but watch what happens. So she's climbing these walls. She's run out of walls in Florida. She literally traveled the state climbing some of the most challenging rock walls all over the state because that's what she could afford to do. That was within her means. She didn't even have a passport at the time. And, and some of the greatest mountains there's some in our country too, but she wanted to go outside of the country. And she's thinking, I'm just going to climb these rock walls. At least for her, it was a challenge she could meet. So she's doing that. So she soon ran out of walls. And I remember when she said, listen, I've run out of walls and I love cruising. And I said, girl, they have some great rock walls on some of these various cruise ships and stuff like that. She's like, I've been really wanted to do that. So she actually, because she had the means to do it and she'd wanted to do it and she'd been planning on doing it with her family, she took a cruise seeking out a rock wall so she could scale a new wall because she'd climbed the walls in Florida. Okay. And on one of these cruises, she tells me the story. She met a gentleman who was impressed with her tenacity. They struck up a conversation, but guess where that conversation happened? It happened at the top of a rock wall while she was in the middle of the ocean and she was ringing a bell. Listen, stop, listen. She talked to a guy hanging in the air. I would never do it, but she did it. And she was reaching out to ring the bell. And apparently they were both reaching for a similar bell. They had kind of got to the same place on the wall. And he was like, man, I've been watching you on the cruise. You're really good. And I said to her, girl, was he hitting on you? And she's like, no. We just started talking, hanging in the air. And the guy down was like yelling, like, you guys got to come down. So we had to rappel. So they come down. And this conversation started again at the top when she's ringing the bell. And what was her goal? I ring the bells of the most challenging rock walls. Her angels, her energy, her mind and spirit pushed her in this direction where she had this quest where she had to find every wall, which I thought was crazy, as y'all know about my heights thing. But she did it. That was her dream. Far be it from me to dissuade somebody from their dream. So she lived that dream and that was what she did. So she's talking to this guy and they come down. And they are still talking about it. And he introduces her to some of his traveling buddies who just happen to be mountain climbers. And he invites her to Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. And it's one of the most iconic peaks in the world. And it's recognized the world over. And it has a logo actually with the North Face. And it's 8,000 feet above awe-inspiring Yosemite and the valley, and it just has these amazing panoramic views of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and it's so popular. Check this out. So popular that over the past few years, the park has instituted a lottery system for those who are wishing to stand atop the granite giant, like if they want to be on top of this thing. And that lottery randomly selects 225 lucky hikers for each day and early in the season while reserving another 50 slots for the lottery daily. And what they do is they let you climb this mountain, but it's so popular. Here's the thing. Here's the kicker. One of the guys that was on the cruise with her, that was part of the team that this guy that she met on the top of the rock wall ringing the bell introduced her to, had an injury and he had to drop out. So they kept in contact. And one day the guy called her and said, I really would love for you to fill in for Raul. And she thought, I don't know. I've just climbed rock walls. I want to climb mountains. I don't know. And here's the thing. They were sponsored by a rappelling equipment company. This was a team of climbers, a sponsored team. And they made contacts to their headquarters to request that she start coming out to California. She's from Florida. Start coming out to California to train with her. And to train with them, rather. And they flew her out to California and began training with her. They covered her cost. And they flew her to California over a series of months to begin training so that they could go climb one of these peaks. Her life unfolded in this miraculous way by just writing down one small, attainable goal. So you do not need to go out and get to the top of your rock wall all in one day. You don't need to climb a mountain today, but write down that you want to ring the bell of the rock wall, your figurative bell. And the momentum of that daily energy will build and begin to pry open the doors in your life that you would never imagine. And that's what our practical tip is today. Dream writing. I ran across this article in Forbes that I thought really laid out specific reasons you should be writing down your goal. And I'm going to just hit a couple of the talking points here. We hear a lot about the importance of this, but the first step is create a vision. And I think of my friend, and her vision was, I want to climb mountains. And then she scaled it back because sometimes we worry. And she said, well, I know that I can climb rock walls, so I'm going to write that down. So she started with something she felt was doable, attainable, and possible for her. She climbed the rock walls. Those rock walls, as you just heard, led her to her greater destiny that she couldn't even have imagined. What are the chances you're going to meet someone hanging in the air over the ocean in the middle of nowhere, and they're going to invite you to be on a rock climbing team? I mean, it's just amazing to me the way that this stuff unfolds. But it all started with her by creating a vision. She created a goal. She figured out what she wanted. And it doesn't matter what you want. The thing is, you have to figure out. That's the fun part. You get to dream. What do you really want to create for yourself? What does your ideal life look like? Do not be afraid to think big. And even my friend, even though she's now living the big dream, she started out with a small one. So it's okay if you even think small. It's okay if you think, I just want to get to here, because it's amazing the momentum that will carry you to the next place. She took minutes to document it. Now in Forbes, they recommend take 15 minutes to document your vision. Take note of all of the details. What does your day look like? Where are you living? Try to incorporate all these senses into your vision to make it the most effective. Literally talk about smell, hearings, taste, feel. What would happen throughout that day? And as she began to flesh it out, she would tell me, and I don't know if she wrote it down, but she definitely told me about envisioning the wind coming at her and what it would smell like being next to rock that was never touched by humans, just weird things that I would never think about. But she was fleshing out her dream and bringing it to this grand reality in her mind. The next thing Forbes recommends is to make it measurable. Take your vision and turn it into a written list of concrete goals. So if your ideal world is one where you're working for yourself, one of your goals might be start to write down you own your own company. Choose an achievable time frame is another thing they recommend to accomplish your goals. What exactly does it mean to start your own company? And make sure you set yourself up for your success by creating goals that are realistic and achievable. Now, I'm reading out of Forbes. Maybe the first goal you set when you want to own your own company, but you've been working in corporate America for 15 years, wouldn't be, I'm going to be on Forbes in the next 2 months. Let's think about life. And yes, it's not saying that it's not possible for you to be on the cover of Forbes. But if you're still sitting at a desk job, what magical, amazing thing would have to happen? You want to be realistic so that you can feel like you're successful. Set benchmarks is the next thing. And most of our goals are buildups from small achievements. And this is so true with my friend. She just wanted to climb the rock walls in Florida. And then she ran out of those walls and moved to the cruise. And it was all from a small thing. She wanted to climb mountains, but she started with these rock walls that anybody could go to anywhere. She started small and she set benchmarks and she broke down the goal into actionable steps and assigned realistic timeframes to them. The next thing is celebrate your success. Ring that bell. She got to the top of it. She rang the bell, and that signaled to her angels in the universe, time to send in this guy next to you. I know he's not hitting on you. He's here to help you. He's an angel that's going to carry you into the next part of your life. I believe the most important part of goal setting is celebrating your success. How will you reward yourself? Especially when you meet those benchmarks along the way. How will you celebrate once you've reached your goal? As we journey into the realization of our goals, it's so important to remember our vision. We want something that can provide us with the motivation and the determination to continue to work towards it, even when things don't go as planned or are more difficult than we anticipate, which can happen. So once you reach that goal, let's celebrate that goal. And remember that successful people write down their goals. Create a vision for what you want and turn that into a list of measurable goals. Set benchmarks and do not forget to celebrate your successes along the way. It can happen to you. It will happen to you, and it all starts with a few words and a dream. I'm so glad